Happy 4th of July and welcome everybody to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on all our social media networks and to catch us every day by logging on to our website, mexiconewsnetwork.com, for relevant stories and news. Let's start with today's show. The Pacific Alliance, an integration agreement between Chile, Colombia, Mexico and Peru, may be an alternative to the Trans-Pacific Agreement on Economic Cooperation, the TPP, according to Economy Secretary Ildefonso Guajardo. With the arrival of Donald Trump to the White House, the United States made the decision to leave the TPP. Faced with this, President Enrique Peña Nieto, along with his counterparts Michelle Bachelet of Chile, Juan Manuel Santos of Colombia, and Pedro Pablo Kuczynski of Peru, promoted the creation of the figure of associated states with the framework of the Pacific Alliance, under which 4 countries will join in a couple of months: New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and Singapore. With this agreement under his arm, President Peña Nieto will arrive in Hamburg this week at the G20 summit, where he'll meet with Donald Trump in the framework of the renegotiations of the Free Trade Agreement of America between Los Pinos, Ottawa, and the White House. According to the Secretary of Economy, the Pacific Alliance may be an alternative to the TPP. The countries that are missing but could also be integrated as associated states to the Pacific Alliance are Malaysia, Brunei, Japan, and Vietnam. In other news, in 2011, Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway invested $5 billion in the Bank of America in exchange for preferred shares and the right to buy 700 million ordinary shares, now worth $17 billion. The cash injection helped the bank dispel doubts about whether it had enough capital, and its shares have more than tripled since then. The episode underscored Buffett's role as a financial bailiff and resembles the confidence-building investments he made at Goldman Sachs and General Electric during the 2008 crisis. Berkshire said in a statement that it would convert its preferred shares into common shares once the Charlotte, North Carolina-based bank raised its dividends, now planned for early in the third quarter. Buffett explained his justification for the conversion, which will make him the company's largest shareholder, in a February letter to investors, in which he explained by converting preferred stock into common stock, the Berkshire definite dividend will rise to $336 million annually. After receiving Federal Reserve approval for his capital plan, Bank of America said on June the 28th that it planned to increase dividends by the 60% to 12 cents per quarter. The $12 billion increase adds up to more than $1.5 billion in dividends from the preferred shares in the last 6 years. Moving on. In 5 years' time, the first generation to receive their pension from the Afore will be in trouble, experts say, mainly because it will be low, which will cause discontent. Therefore, beyond analysing whether or not to increase the contribution, what is urgent is to reform the whole scheme, warned Pablo Antolin Nicolas, economist at the private pension unit of the agency. From Paris, he said that the changes should raise contributions, raise wages, promote voluntary savings, improve old age care programs, and homogenise the pension system. Since otherwise, there'll be a kind of complete disillusionment about the system that will lead to its collapse, he said. In addition, he considered that to raise the pensions of Mexican workers, it's not enough to increase the obligatory contributions. A reform of the system that includes a whole package of shares is needed, although the results will be seen in the long term. The current Mexican pension system came into force on July 1, 1997, and with a mandatory contribution of 6.5% will result in a pension or replacement rate of only 26% for the average worker. Saving money for retirement is still something that Mexicans are not very good at doing, and in young people, this discipline is even less prominent. According to data from Amafore, only 40% of men and 28% of women in Mexico save for their retirement. And finally, let's check the markets. The Mexican peso increased 0.25% to 18.26 from 18.21 in the previous trading session. IPC Mexico increased 0.35% to 50,033 from 49,857 in the previous trading session. Historically, this is the all-time high figure reached by the Mexico stock market IPC index. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us. I'm your host, Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and log on to MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. Until next time.